of June 26, 2023. Call it to order, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hopefully for the last time, Norma, would you call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Tom Bagnall. Present. Councilmember Adri Saavedra.
Present.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Mayor John Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry. Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta. And Councilmember Eric Daniels.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you, Norma. Move into presentations. The first one is the legislative update from Representative Teresa. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am State Representative Teresa Martinez from LD 16, covering Maricopa, Casa Grande, Eloy, Coolidge, Stanfield, Red Rock, small part of Tucson, tribal communities of Auction and Gila River. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for giving me the opportunity to give this legislative update. Although we have not signed or died yet, we did finish the budget, and we are very, very close to being finished with this session. The budget was a bipartisan budget of $17.8 billion, and I wanted to go over some highlights. We reduced the state budget by 1.6%. Last year's budget was over $18 billion. This budget was $2.5 billion in one-time spending. There was one-time spending of a tax rebate for anyone with dependent children under 18 years of age of $250 per child, up to 3 children, resulting in up to $750 max credit. Each Republican member was able to direct specifically $20 million to spend on one-time projects that member wanted. The Democrats opted to combine all their money for statewide projects. Those projects were for the Housing Trust Fund of $150 million, Short-Term Housing Fund, got $60 million in emergency housing for the homeless, and K-12 education of $100 million in one-time spending statewide. The $20 million I was allotted and bills I ran for the district were very specific. $5 million for the city of Coolidge for road improvements of Coolidge Avenue. Another $5 million out of my allotment was $5 million to the city of Eloy for road improvements on the I-10 Sunland Gin and the I-10 Erica Road improvements. I sponsored House Bill 2449, which was $9.2 million for the east-west corridor, the Casa Grande Maricopa Freeway, that road that connects the two cities. I ran HB 2532 for $700,000 for the study of State Route 87, which was here. There was a little bit of a happy mistake. And because of this happy mistake, I'm happy to report that Coolidge got $5 million for Coolidge Avenue, $700,000 for the study, an additional almost $700,000 for additional road improvements for Coolidge. What had happened was I said $700,000 for Coolidge for a study. It got very, very chaotic. I remembered Erica Road, but that was for Eloy. So an additional $700,000 went in for the city of Coolidge. So congratulations.
Thanks for your mistake.
Yeah, so that was a wonderful mistake. But back to my presentation. I ran HB 2448, which was $25 million for the Santa Rosa Canal for Auction and the Stanfield. There was House Bill 2453, which was a mirror bill to Senator Shope's I-10 bill, which got killed in transportation, long story. But we ended up saving that bill, and we put it on my bill, on the Casa Grande Maricopa one. And so we received an additional $89 million for I-10. Another mirror bill was House Bill 2553, which we put together for $18 million for the widening of State Route 347. Senator Shope and I worked very, very hard on that, and that bill did not get killed on transportation, so his went through. My mirror bill died. We also had $2 million for the Gila River Indian Community for Seed Farm Road. I also sponsored HB 2063, which redirected $10 million to Maricopa for State Route 238. $200,000 went to Pinal County Juvenile Detention for capital improvements, like shelves and library books and whatnot for the kids in juvie. And then $20,000 went for Pinal County CASA program, which was foster care. As a member of leadership, I was able to direct additional money to projects of importance to our region. I don't know if you guys know that I am officially part of leadership. I am the majority whip. And so we were able to direct, because I know you're probably thinking, wait a minute, Teresa, you just said $20 million, and you rattled off a whole bunch of more that was way more than $20 million. And that was, I think, part of the benefit of being in leadership, being at that negotiating table when the budget was being crafted. And so for the $25 million coming for the Santa Rosa Canal, that actually did not come out of my allotment. That came out of the WIFA allotment. And we were able to do some of those strategies so that Pinal County got every dime imaginable that we could get this session. This session has not been easy. It wasn't perfect. There were literal fights, tears, bad language used, deal making, sweet talking, a whole bunch of pretty please or else to get this budget passed. But this budget was passed in less time than it was last year. Overall, as a county, we did very, very well. And I'm super proud of that. Being in leadership was a challenge, and I think it was worth it. But what truly made it successful was the partnership that I had from Senator Shope. He was in the Senate and had my back, had our back. Where my bill died, his bill succeeded. Where his bill died, my bill triumphed. And together we were able to work as a partnership, and I really enjoyed that. I didn't have that my first session. And speaking of partnerships, I'd like to take a special moment and thank Mayor Thompson, Rick Miller, and Gilbert Lopez, because they worked with me on this $5 million for Coolidge Avenue. They worked with me for the $700,000. I called them, I texted them, they called me and texted me. And they said, hey, we can't have you vote on this. Or, hey, what are you doing? And then I would explain to them, this is what my strategy is. And then they understood. And then they said, don't forget Coolidge. And I want you to know that it's these kind of partnerships that are very important to me. I liken it to a football game. You all know football. My little boy was a Bear. And so I watched a lot of football in that Larry Delbridge Stadium over there. You have the coach. The coach designs the plays, and he tells the player what play to run. And it's up to the player to execute. The coach says, go get me that ball, and he goes gets that ball. The coach says, I need another first down. Go get me that first down. Or dare to dream, go get me a touchdown. In this scenario, you are the coach, and I am the player. They once told me, they said, Teresa, don't you realize you're in the state legislature? It goes city, county, state legislature, and congressman. Did you know that? And I said, I don't know that, because that's not how it works. It's city, county, state, Congress. We are all equal partners in the people that we serve. I can't do this without you, and I'll be honest, I don't want to do it without you. Coolidge is a very special place for me. Yes, I was born and raised in Casa Grande, and I'm a Cougar, go Union. But my little boy did not do well at Union. My little boy, for 8 weeks, got straight Fs in Union all the way down. And he said he couldn't go there. He just couldn't. So we said, well, where do you want to go, baby? And he says, I want to go to Coolidge. And I was like, Coolidge? And he's like, yep, I want to go to Coolidge. And he came his freshman year, 3/4 of the year. He only did like less than a quarter at Union. And he came to Coolidge. And this town became his hometown. His high school dances, his football, his track, his friends, where he came and he did the parades. He loves this town. And there was no way that I was going to turn my back on the city that welcomed my son. And for that, I will always fight for Coolidge. I know a lot of people come up here and make a lot of promises. I get that. I've been lied to too. I'm a woman and I'm in politics. Trust me, people lie to me. But I stand here in person to tell you that I'm going to do everything I can for this city. When you have a problem with the state, and it sounded like you had some issues where the finance director, come talk to me. Let's work on that together. This summer, in closing, this summer I'm going to be putting small groups together, small groups, to talk about the legislation that we as a community need to run. There's a term at the legislature called lobbyist mules, where a lobbyist will take a legislator and say, will you run this bill for me? And then the legislator says, yeah, sure, I'll run this bill. And they call them like lobbyist mules. And one woman says, I'm not one of those because I'm going to run bills for my constituents. And I thought, that's a good idea. So July 6th is my first one for education. I'm going to have several with education, as the mayor knows. He and I have already spoken about how we're going to kind of divvy up these small groups, because I want the bills that I run to be from you. I want you to know about them. I want you to talk about them. I want you to think about them. I want you to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to call my state representative, and she is going to run this bill. If you have problems with the Department of Motor Vehicles, access, any kind of state agency, I want you to go to that state agency and say, you know what? I'm not going to be down for this tomfoolery. I'm going to call my representative, and you can explain it to her. And they will come into my office and they will have to explain it to me. Now, my little boy was tough. Eric, did you go to school with him? I think you went to school with him. My little boy was tough, liked to fight, liked to do crazy things, but he was a fighter, as am I. And so I just come up here humbly, asking to work with you as a team. And with that, I'm open for any questions that anybody has.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, I just want to make sure I heard that right. We do have the funding for the I-10 state.
We do. So we have 400, thank you for asking me that question. So council member, we do have $400 million that we passed last year, and then an additional $89 million. So far, the state has gotten $489 million to widen. Now, right where Casablanca Road is, you're going to start to see some striping. When that striping begins, you're going to start to see a lot of activity come through. ADOT has promised me, and trust me, I have been on ADOT like you would not believe, that they are going to actually start turning dirt in the year 2025. And so you're going to start to see a lot of preparations. I have monthly meetings with ADOT where they come into my office and I ask them a whole bunch of questions, and I go to their board meetings so that I can be abreast about what they do. Myself, I am also not only am I the majority whip, but I am also the vice chair of transportation. And so next session, this coming year, ADOT will be under an audit and will have to present to the transportation board. I promise you one thing, our roads are going to be on time if they want a successful, happy vice chairman. So.
And one last question.
Sure.
Can you help us with a stop sign or stop light on Skousen Road?
Yes.
I mean, I know the mayor's been working his butt off for that, and it seems like he runs into hurdles all the time. Can you help him get over a hurdle so we can get that done as soon as possible?
I absolutely would. So I was told recently that a stop sign is about $100,000. I'll see if we can find some money in ADOT. If not, I'll run a bill for it.
Okay.
I'll run a bill for that $100,000 because it's what you guys want. That's why I'm here, to hear what you need.
It's what we need to save lives, is what we do.
That's a crazy road.
People are having a hard time out there.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Thank you for all your hard work. You're doing a great job for us.
I'm trying.
That 489 million, how much I-10 does that get us?
That gets us from Chandler, that gets us the bridge, and that gets us almost all the way to Casa Grande. We're about 5 miles, give or take, for that Casa Grande. Now, according to Senator Kelly has vowed, as well as Senator Sinema, has vowed to help us with the federal grant. So the federal grant that the ADOT is going after is going to be $189 million or $130 million. And they're going to apply for that grant next month. They should have already applied for it, but for whatever reason, it's been a little bit slow. And so we're hoping that that last part, that federal grant will be received, that the senators as well as our congressmen will be successful in getting that grant for. But if not, I want you to know, we will go after that until every mile is paid for. And we're very, very close to the full funding.
I say that because whenever there's a problem on I-10, that really screws it up for all of us here in Coolidge that are trying to head up because they all come over to 87.
Yep.
And, so, and that's something else. I mean, the way everything's growing and everything, 87 needs to be looked at as well, from Coolidge on up to the Chandler area.
And I 100% agree with you. One of the things that was a little bit odd was, like I said, every Republican member got $20 million, and they said, here's your $20 million. You can do whatever you want with it. And one of the things that's always bothered me is that Eloy and Coolidge always get left out of everything. And I hate that. So I want it to be fair. And to be honest, I did okay. There were 2 cities that I represent that didn't get anything. And I'm really embarrassed about that. And I'm going to have to go and face that city council like I'm doing here to talk and to own up to it. And that was Florence and Tucson. I have a little bit of Tucson, and Tucson is like, well, you never come to, never see you. You're always busy in Pinal, because Pinal's always the one that's forgotten. But I'm going to do a better job on getting to Tucson and to Florence a little bit more. But that $20 million, I figured the best way I could do is start splitting it up. What I'm doing now, and I'm going to be telling my secrets. I shouldn't be saying the papers here, so don't print this part. What I'm doing now during this summer, yes, I am working on legislation, but I'm also working on where additional money is. And I'll give you an example. The opioid settlement fund is a fund that is housed in the Attorney General's budget. However, that money has to be appropriated by the legislature. There's anywhere from $40 to $50 million that is not part of our general fund that sole purpose is to use for opioids. So if Coolidge came to me and said, we would like $5 million to combat opioid abuse in our schools, here is an idea. I could go to that $40-50 million opioid fund and said, hey, here it is. The great news about that opioid fund is that it's a settlement, I think from Johnson & Johnson, and they had to pay this exorbitant amount of money to the state of Arizona. And so for the next several years, we're going to be getting a surplus of $40 to $50 million every year from Johnson & Johnson to go to combat opioids. Well, I can tell you, not all the legislators know that. They don't know that. And so what I've been doing, and this is what I think being in leadership is about, they said, oh, you know what, for that $25 million for the Santa Rosa Canal, Teresa, We'll just get it from WIFA. Oh, I didn't know we could do that. Oh, we could do that. Did you know that there is money in the Department of Agriculture, and I think there's like $20 million surplus at the end of the year, at the end of the fiscal year, that can go to projects as long as the nexus is agriculture. Well, I don't know. Are there some ditches that we can line to get the water? What do our farmers need? What kind of things can we do with that money? State land trust. There's state land trust money there as well. So I always hear how Maricopa comes in and they sweep all these funds. And maybe, yeah, I'm calling, it's the pot calling the kettle black. Maybe there's a little bit. But if Maricopa has the audacity to go and sweep those funds from Maricopa County, then you know what? Maybe we in Pinal County ought to start fighting for some money there too. Because I'm tired of the great state of Maricopa County getting everything. And so what I'm also doing this summer is I'm learning where those extra pockets of money are so that maybe we can go tap them. And yes, I'm looking at ADOT for the roads, so.
Have anything? Okay. Well, Teresa, or Representative Martinez, I guess I should say, you did a good job this year, and we sure appreciate it. I wanted to say, they do treat us equally when it comes to taking back things, like when they cut the HERF funds. Coolidge is, I think we're the first one in line. And when they do things like that. And I'm glad that you're on the committees you're on, because I'm going to tell you, ADOT needs some looking at least the Southern Division. We have nothing but problems with those guys. And one of the people that you see that guy wearing that nice looking kind of a red shirt back there with a smile on his face?
Yes.
On the way out, that's the guy you want to talk to about ADOT. And the guy in the cowboy hat, one half of our public. If you want to know about farmers and what's going on with the money and how that works, that's Mr. Hiscox. You might want to talk to him or write his name and number down. And when you have a question, call him and ask him, because he's a pretty honest guy.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will absolutely do that. ADOT came into my office last session. Anthony Castleman, in fact, the gentleman that called you. Was that today? Did you get the call today? Okay. Anthony Castleman came into my office last year to introduce himself after I had sent 3 videos to Governor Ducey and his legislative liaison of me being stuck on the I-10. And he came in and told me, we're doing everything we can. It's our number one priority. And I looked him dead in the eye and I cussed that poor boy out like you wouldn't believe, because they're not doing everything they could. And I said, we can't even get signs moved over, slower traffic over to the right. We can't even get that. And I threw a fit of epic proportions. And then he says, you know what? We can get some signs up there. That striping that they're going to do for Casablanca Road, free. We're not paying for it. You're not paying for it. And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see them come and try to take that money away from you first. Not without a fight. Not without a fight.
Teresa, when you talk about things like that, like these rumble strips that we're supposed to be getting, is that what you talked about, Rick, with her? Because, that project's been going on forever, and the money's already, it's been there for quite some time, and, it's the same thing. The southern portion of ADOT, they work in Tucson basically, and if they get a chance, they'll come to rural Arizona. And we're rural Arizona. We're as rural as it gets for them, pretty much over this way. And so we always run into that. We do run into some issues, though, being next to a federal reservation or reservation land, because if you run into some problems there on easements, our airport, one of these days we'd like to sit down and talk to you about the problem we're having just running our power line to the airport. But that's another, we'll be seeing you this summer, so we'll talk about that then. So, but Ben's got some interesting stories about ADOT, so you might want to hear them.
I'd love to hear them. And just so that you know, Mr. Mayor, and maybe Mr. Miller and Mr. Lopez can do a list of everything I need to check on. Because I can assure you that even though it's the summer and it's a little lax for us, I have plenty of times for meetings. That way, when in November, when we start running our bills, I know exactly what I'm doing, and it's about preparation. And again, I think it's important that the council and the public, the two of you, no, I'm just kidding, that the two of you know that your mayor is on the phone with me, and Mr. Miller and Mr. Lopez are on the phone with me, and we've met a couple of times already. I'd like to get on a schedule where we're meeting once a month and just talking about what you need and what's going on at the legislature. Happy to do that. I'm also going to give you guys my cell phone number. And I understand that it's public. We don't have to write it in the paper, but I'm going to give it to everyone because I want you to be able to text me and say, hey, this is Councilman Daniels, and I need you to come and see X, Y, and Z. And so my cell phone number is 520-709-2311. I'll say that again. It's 520-709-2311. I want you guys to reach out and talk to me, text me, call me. I'm happy to answer the phone. And I'm your representative. And how can I be your representative if I don't talk to you?
I didn't have to write it down because you already gave it to me about a year ago.
Well, I think Mr. Mayor has mine for sure because sometimes I think he ignores it. I'm just kidding, Mr. Mayor. I'm just kidding.
Well, I sure appreciate you coming out and telling us what's going on. I don't think people have an idea of how much goes on, and you know, we were lucky to get, but we don't. And Coolidge, and I hate to stick up for Eloy, but I'm going to do it this time. But Coolidge and Eloy do have, just like there was a meeting this last week, and I got something from, I'm not sure what organization it was. Oh, it was the Chamber, Arizona Chamber. And they weren't going to have the meeting here in Coolidge, but they went they were going to have a meeting in Casa Grande, and then they were going to jump over and have the meeting in Florence, but they wanted us to tell everybody about it. And I thought, well, you know, you could have come to, I mean, we do have buildings with air conditioning in Coolidge, despite what people think. And, you know, most of our citizens they're civilized. And so, you know, it's no harm coming over here. There's our police chief, and he's never been on what's that list, chief, the Brady list. Yeah. There's still time, but he's never been on it yet. But, you know, so I just think that, you know, that's something when they call and ask for a favor, but they always jump over your city because of whatever reason, I don't know. But it's getting kind of old, and we're getting kind of testy about it, so.
Well, I want you to know, Mr. Mayor, that that's not going to happen. At least, not, I will always stick up for Coolidge. And again, I can't thank the city enough for welcoming my little boy. He'll be 21 tomorrow, and he's still my little boy, but I thank the city of Coolidge for welcoming him. Thank you, Eric, for being his friend. And I really appreciate everything the city has done for my family. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We sure could have used him in the last couple of years, I can tell you that.
He ran 107 yards for a touchdown that didn't count against Florence, so.
And that's even better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4. June 2023, the Small Cities Month proclamation. I'm going to go ahead and read that. Whereas small cities and towns under 50,000 population are home to Americans and constitute the vast majority of municipalities across the United States, and whereas small cities and towns strive to strengthen their communities through the provision of services and programs to improve the quality of life for all citizens, and whereas the federal government is an essential partner in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue to support programs and legislation that strengthens small communities. And whereas state governments and partners in the success of small cities and towns must be encouraged to continue to support key programs and legislation that strengthen communities. And whereas organizations, businesses, and citizens are partners in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue to grow their efforts to make small communities a viable choice for people to live in. And whereas during these challenging economic times, the need for a renewed intergovernmental partnership to support essential public services is more important than ever to ensure the safety and growth of small-town America. And whereas the National League of Cities President and Small-Town City Council of the National League of Cities have declared June 2023 as Small Cities Month. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, John Thompson, Mayor of the City of Coolidge, proclaim June 2023 as Small Cities Month and encourage President Biden, Congress, state governments, organizations, businesses, and all citizens to recognize this event and to work together this month throughout the year to invest in small cities and towns to better the lives of all citizens. Okay, we'll move out of this and move into call of the public. Is there anybody in the public? I don't see our public rushing forward. We move out of call of the public. Business items for consent. Is there any items that anyone on the council wants pulled off of the agenda for individual consideration?
No, sir.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to have item 5 pulled.
Item 5, okay. Anybody, anything else? Okay, item 5 is off. I'll start. Item 6. Consider approval of entering into an intergovernmental agreement, IGA 23-0009264-I, between the Arizona Department of Transportation and the City of Coolidge to initiate the Coolidge Avenue Christian Road to Clements Road widening project. Item 7. Consider approval of entering into a cooperative purchasing agreement with Ellison Mills Construction for on-call maintenance and repair services to construct an additional road lane and bike lane and sidewalk on Coolidge Avenue and authorizing the mayor to sign the necessary documents. Item 8, consider approval of entering into Amendment Number 1 of Intergovernmental Agreement IGA 21008-241-I between the Arizona Department of Transportation and the City of Coolidge to initiate the Signal Peak Road Rumble Strip project, authorizing the mayor to sign the necessary documents. Item 9, consider approval of entering into a professional services agreement between the City of Coolidge and Logan Simpson Design, Inc. for the purpose of providing designing services for the Coolidge Regional Park project, authorizing staff to finalize scope of services and fee schedule. Item 10, consider approval of amending the city's current salary plan for fiscal year 2023-2024. Item 11, consider approval of canceling the July 24th, 2023 City Council meeting. Item 12, consider approval of the claims for the month of May 2023. Okay.
Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I make a motion, we approve consent agenda items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 as read.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I don't see any. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those carry. We'll move to item 5.
Okay.
Consider approval of declaring the E531 Ferrara fire engine as surplus property and approval for sale or donation. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor Henry, who is not here, and council.
Okay.
This item is a Engine is currently engine 531. It's apparatus that we have in our fleet. It is approximately 27 years old. NFPA standards that we try to adhere to, which is Standard 1911, states that when a fire apparatus gets to be about 20 years old, they need to put it in reserve, and at 25, need to start thinking about retiring it. And that's just because of the hard life that they've had. And this is no exception. Given our current infrastructure that we have within the fire department, we're running out of room to store the apparatus that we have. So it's time that we kind of get out with the old and start making room for some of the new stuff.
Okay, Mayor Thompson, Council, I just, when I saw it on the agenda, initially I didn't have that big of concern with it because I realized, things get old and they wear out and it's time to get rid of them. The only thing that came up just recently was, this last weekend, they had kind of a battery fire up in the valley. And to go along with that, we have a lot of these solar facilities that are going in, and they have battery facilities.
They do.
And one of our biggest problems with that is during the fire that they had, they were putting a lot of water on that.
Yes.
But we don't have fire hydrants out in those areas, do we?
We do not in a large section of that area, yes.
Because as I understand it, the best way to fight those fires is just you dump sand on them. Otherwise, if you pour a bunch of water on it, it just basically keeps them
It's either
down.
it's either sand or tens of hundreds of thousands of gallons of water.
Yeah. So anyway, so this takes it, because I believe, we currently have 4 engines counting this one,
Correct.
correct? So then this will take us down to 3.
It takes us down to 3. We still have a 3,000 gallon tender. Our ladder truck carries 500 gallons of water. Our new brush truck carries 450 gallons. So we have a lot of water capabilities. This engine right here is, it's, if the council wants to, vote this down, that's fine. We'll keep it in the fleet. It did not pass its pump test. So it cannot be used for frontline firefighting. So it would be relegated to being stored and as a water tanker, basically. And things start getting expensive on these old pieces of equipment when you start fixing them too. So.
Right. And I don't have a problem with us going ahead.
Yeah.
Declaring the surplus and everything. It's just, it concerns me, and I believe, what are we looking at towards the future as far as another fire truck?
Yes.
I think we had something in the budget regarding that, and is it 2-3 years out or something? Or?
Correct. Yes, it'll be approximately 2-3 years out. The reason why is the cost of the cost of our equipment for my department is the highest that any city is going to pay, no matter what city you're in.
Sure.
So the engine companies, to replace this particular piece of equipment, if we bought exactly the same style, exactly the same type of model, just a newer one, you're still looking in around the $400,000-$500,000 range. For the larger ones that we have now, you're looking in the $700,000 to $800,000 for replacement.
And you feel that the 3 engines that we have after we retire this one is enough to take us through until we can get to that new engine? Then we'll probably be looking at retiring another, correct?
Completely. The 3 engines we have now are completely adequate. Okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
You bet.
Hold on, Chief. I think Councilmember Bagnell brings up a pretty good point. Is the barn filled up out there? We still got the place on Signal Peak, don't we?
Correct. We do.
Is it filled up?
It is not filled up. We're going to have one empty space because the new pub ed trailer that we have is going to be stored out there. And we also will have one empty space. So in all actuality, we could not retire it and we could keep it on our insurance, keep providing maintenance costs on it to keep going and keep it, or keep the spot open for a new piece of equipment.
Well, I mean, I I think he's right. To be honest with you, I don't know when we're going to get another one. I mean, obviously we're going to need one, but I'm just thinking that even Nicola, their trucks caught on fire, and I saw that this weekend, and they had some things going on over there down in Phoenix, and they were putting the water on batteries,
Yes.
and I'm thinking, maybe we set it in there for a while, and hopefully nothing will happen. But if all it can do is pump water anyway, take it out if it's out in the middle of an old field somewhere, and we're pumping water on it out there, I don't see. I mean, even if it caught on fire and burned down, we're not losing a whole heck of a lot, are we? I mean,
If that's the wish of the council, then we will keep it in the fleet and
What's the cost
continue
of
with it.
maintaining that truck yearly?
The cost of maintaining it, I don't have those figures with me. I'd have to get with Jeremy on that. But it is a 96. Obviously, it has passed its pump test this past year. So in order to get it back as a reserve piece of apparatus. Now, the standard says anything after 25 years. Doesn't mean you can't have a rig that's older than 25 years. You can. But we have to get it back up. And in order to get it back up to standard, we're going to have to invest several $1,000s in pump work in order to get it back up to standard in order to be used by firefighters for interior attack.
You don't want something, putting it out there and endanger a firefighter if it's
Correct.
not.
And at this point, that vehicle, I would not put in service as a frontline vehicle. And that's the reason I brought this to you. So.
the only reason I would suggest keeping it is a second vehicle if you're going to go fight that type of fire. And if it, depending on what it costs.
Okay. Yeah, and Ben was just talking about it. They've got water trucks at Public Works that they could back us up with as well. So, but if the council wishes us to keep this in our fleet, we will keep it in our fleet and use it for water, additional water storage for those potential incidents.
Well, maybe we ought to have. It's not Ben anymore. Who's in charge of the fleet now? Or Jeremy? Maybe Jeremy can take a look at it and see. You can wait 2 weeks, can't you, or whatever until the next.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't have I don't have a buyer lined up. I don't have a donation person set up. I did talk with CAC. They were interested in the vehicle as a donation for their fire science program out at CAC. I spoke with Cavett. Cavett wasn't interested, and the reason, not that they weren't interested in our vehicle, they just already had two, and they just didn't have space for another. So that's why I wanted to, if we did declare the surplus property, I was going to donate it to a local educational institution that could help with training of our people and the surrounding firefighters.
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with that either, but I think I'd like to see how much it would cost to keep it around for a little while, because to be honest with you, these batteries are kind of a new thing to me. And when they catch on fire, it seems like there's a lot of problems. And I'd rather lose an old fire engine that is going to go anyway than lose, like water trucks and things that are, we'll be using quite often. So it can wait till the next meeting if we table it.
Yeah, we'll have Jeremy look into the cost of getting the pumper up and running again. I think there certainly will be a price tag to that, but.
Well, if it costs too much, send it down the road. It's, just going to be a few weeks later, that's all.
And Councilman Bagman was right. In our budget, we're beginning to put capital away year after year to purchase these trucks as a few years down the road. So we'll replace them with better vehicles.
Right, because I mean, we're not only talking about, the maintenance and what it's going to cost to bring the truck back up, but then we still got the additional cost for having it on our insurance and everything else. So,
Correct.
I mean, I'd like to know what it would cost to bring it up, and what our expenses have been on it. Because I mean, if it's just bleeding us dry, I mean, I agree. I think it's time to go ahead and deem it surplus and give it to somebody else. Let it be their problem.
I wouldn't go as far as say it's bleeding the city dry.
Well,
It's one vehicle, but for what it initially costs for what we've gotten out of it, putting any more into it may or may not be fiscally sound.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
we'll
think-
have Jeremy look at that.
yeah, I think we've all had that one vehicle in our life that, it just never seemed to stop.
Yep.
So we just finally cut our losses and get rid of it, so.
Yep.
But yeah, I'd be willing to wait until that time. So if council approves, I'd like to go ahead and table this until the next meeting.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Yeah, have them take a look at it and, give us a figure. And if they think, if the council thinks it's reasonable, then we'll, they vote to keep it, that's fine. And if not, I mean, I'm not, crazy about in love with the truck. I just want to make sure that we have enough. I mean, if something happens, we've got a couple of fire trucks in one place and we need another one to go somewhere else. And like I say, these batteries, I'm not real, they can cause a lot of problems. I want to make sure we've got enough equipment and manpower to deal with them if we have to deal with them.
Yeah, they can catch fire, it's for sure. Fortunately, most of these areas are pretty remote. That's the good news.
Yeah, but again, when you have those fires like that, if you dump a bunch of water on them, that water's got to go someplace, and whatever the toxic chemicals are probably going to leach down into our water table, so. Better just dump sand on it like they said, but where are you going to get the sand?
Most of it's out and nothing but sand.
Make them pile up sand near all the battery storage, so.
Well, the fire department can bring their sandbags and throw that at them. Okay, we'll move into business, regular items. Item 13. Consider approval of the infrastructure and services plan for the USA Cap 2 annexation. Mr. Lopez.
Mayor Thompson, council members, this is an annexation that's directly east of IPAS in LaPorte, Arizona. And what we have to do before we consider that ordinance is adopt an infrastructure services plan that outlines how the city would provide services to the area. And out there really isn't much there that we're doing right now. So we're annexing the bottom portion of it, a piece of it, so that we can start there, and then we'll move up towards the front. So we started with the blank petition, which was, the public hearing was held on May 23rd, 2022, and that was 1,013 acres. So we're reducing it down to 193 acres. It gets the bottom part of it, and then we'll work to get the rest of it as we go up. Because some of the bigger landowners want a development agreement, we call it a pre-annexation development agreement, a PADA, and so we're working on that with some of those property owners to the north. But it's important to start the process and get this done. So this is just the infrastructure services plan that outlines what we're going to do with that area we're taking in. The next item will be the ordinance for you to consider this annexation, and it'll add to, our plan eventually is to come back to you with a general plan amendment that would convert that property. Right now, it's actually agriculture and SH under the county's plan, which is kind of a less dense housing portions of it are. So it's one house for every 2 acres, but there's no infrastructure out there, water. Everybody I've talked to out there wants to do industrial. They want to be part of IPAS because they see what's going on, exciting. So it's right next to the area where Procter & Gamble is, and it'd be a great area to expand to if it works out. So that's why we're presenting this to you tonight. If you have any questions, I can answer.
Are there any questions from the council?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I think it's long overdue at that location. So, if there's nothing further, I need a motion to act.
Mayor Thompson, I move to approve the infrastructure and services plan for this USA CAP 2 annexation.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Move to item 14. Ordinance number 2304, an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of Coolidge
Mayor Thompson, council members, this is the actual ordinance to bring it into the city, and all the requirements were met on the length and width of the property. There really aren't a lot of other things that single property owner annexation would, it was attached to it, and the other is the CAP canal, which doesn't actually have an ownership signature requirement. So, again, if you have any questions, I'll answer those. We recommend you approve the annexation ordinance.
Are there any questions? Okay, then I need a motion to,
Chair Thompson, I move to approve ordinance number 23-04 as read.
Second.
okay, a motion and a second. Norma?
Okay, Councilmember Daniels?
Yes.
Councilmember Bagnell?
Yes.
Councilmember Saavedra?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're down to the report from the mayor and council. We'll start with Councilmember Bagnell.
Not a whole lot. I did stop out at the Juneteenth briefly. It was warm, really warm. And we stayed out there for a little while, about 25, 30 minutes. And my wife looked at me and said, I think we need to leave. And I said, I think you're right, because we were both sweating. We did see Gussie out there, and she was waiting for family to come down, so she stayed. And I think she might be able to give you a little bit better idea about how the whole thing went. But it was very nice for the time we were there and everything. So thank you for that invitation out there, and appreciate it. Look forward to next year, and I'll be a little bit more prepared for that. Then I also attended the fundraiser for the Ornelas family over at the American Legion on Saturday afternoon and evening, and I think that went very well. And that's going to help the family out. They're going to help get some clothing because of the total loss from the fire that they had. So I want to thank everybody in the community that came out and helped support the family. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Gum with candy. Just joking.
We'll move down to Eric for a minute. Go ahead.
I actually have one thing today. I was able to attend the Santan Mountain Casino opening. If you haven't got a chance yet, I think it's open. And it's a great facility. And I will say the Governor Lewis extended an invitation to the rest of the council to come see it. He said he'll give us a background kind of tour. It's a really nice facility. That's it.
Okay, we'll come back down here. Are you okay yet? Well, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I have nothing to add myself.
I don't know why, I just keep choking. I do have a question. I called and I thought Public Works was closed because it was Juneteenth, and they called me back. I left a message and I was like, are you guys not on holiday? And they said, no. Will we be looking at adopting it as a holiday for people to be off? Is there a certain number of days that you guys choose and somebody has to forego one to get one?
We have a group of designated holidays that have to be a council decision. Obviously, we want to keep the number of holidays, paid off holidays. Sometimes we give up a holiday for a different holiday, but
Sure.
not been a topic of discussion at this point.
At CAC, we've had it off 2 years in a row. It's kind of wonderful. Just letting you guys know.
Well, thank you. here we, uh,
I don't even get Memorial Day off.
say, go from one extreme to the other. Yeah. Okay, Steve, you got anything?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay,
We do have the 4th of July coming up next week, next Tuesday evening. I believe we're going to have a big fireworks display here on the 4th of July, unlike last year when we had to have it on a different day. So we invite the community to come out to the 4th of July festivities. Should be a really nice presentation of fireworks on that day. I was also very happy to report to the mayor and council that the Arizona Commerce Authority did vote 4-1 in favor of rescinding their prior denial of the SRP. I'm sorry, I said the ACC, didn't I say? Arizona Corporation Commission. They rescinded their previous denial of the SRP power plant expansion. I'd applaud the community of Randolph for working with SRP and SRP for working with them to work out their differences and to come to an agreement that I think will be beneficial to both parties. I did try to speak at that hearing. I was in the middle of a valley up in the mountains, up in a bunch of young men cook, and couldn't get through, but I'm happy to report that it did get approved 4-1. That does represent a pretty a nice revenue for the city of Coolidge. I think they had projected initially that we'd receive somewhere around $10 million over a 10-year period. That's going to be a little less now because it's not going to be the 16 turbines that they had originally planned. It's been reduced in size to 12 turbines, which is about the same size as they have out there right now. They're going to move those turbines further east, but they created a lot of compromises and negotiated, I think, a very good arrangement for the benefit of the Randolph community, and it will help us from an economic development standpoint as well. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
thank you, Rick. Ordinarily, I don't say anything too much on this, but I did jot down a few of the things that I attended since our last meeting. Sun Corridor MPO meeting, the Coolidge Fire Pension Board meeting, the Coolidge Fire Department Public Safety Board, Pinal Partnership Breakfast, the Juneteenth celebration in Randolph. And Gussie, by the way, you did an excellent job emceeing it, even though you got thrown into it. You did a great job. Attended the CAG meeting for the executive committee and met with Nicholas Global, head of manufacturing, Jaime Uola. And we had a pretty good meeting with him, me and Gilbert, wherever Gilbert's at. There he is, Gilbert. And then I attended the ribbon cutting at the Run It Up Gaming, who opened again, and the difference is now is they have a kitchen. So if you go in there to game, you can eat too. So, yeah, so that was a few of them, and that's kind of the way it is, and I guess we'll have a first meeting in July, so, okay. Good, and we know what has to be on it, so if there's nothing further, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're